You're looking at Thomas Weck, author and co-owner of Lima Bean Stories and Lima Bear's Press, and the other owner of the company is?
My son, Peter Weck.
I got to tell you, this is a fascinating story. Thomas, here's the deal. You were in the consulting business for 35 years. You admit that?
30 years.
Okay. All of a sudden, all this time, you're telling your kids, who are your kids, by the way?
There's David, Peter, Catherine, and Andrew, and they were the four that I told bedtime stories to, and I just made them up on the fly.
So you tell them bedtime stories, and you make up this family, because I make up stories to our 8 and soon-to-be 9-year-old and 7-year-old, and some of them I can't repeat on the air. But they're appropriate, but they're a little off color. But here's the point. You start telling some stories, and they're fascinating, and they're about what?
Well, they're about a clan of beans that live in the woods with regular-sized animals, and it's the interaction of them and 3 other principal characters, in addition to a host of other characters that come and go. And they were fascinated by the beans, and I think for 2 reasons. One is that when children come into the world, they come into a world that's sized wrong. It's sized for adults. And they have a lot of obstacles and problems they need to confront. It's the same with these beans. I mean, all the other animals are much bigger than they are, so they have the same problems. And then I decided to further entice the kids that I would give these 2 characters a wonderful set of personality traits. The Lima Bear is just the ultimate in good-heartedness and goodness. And El Joe Bean, his cousin, is the most clever of them all, which tickles kids pink because here's this little bean, he's smarter than all these big animals.
Hold on, so you're telling these stories to the kids.
Yeah.
You're in the consulting business for 30 years, but then your son Peter says, hey, Dad, these stories are too good. What, you got to share them with the world?
Yes. Well, I had retired from the consulting business. As it turned out, 3 of my sons had started their own companies. And then Peter said to me, well, as long as we've started 3 companies, of which I was a partner, he said, why don't we do these books, because we have to share these stories. He said, they're so great, you can't just let them disappear.
And by the way, take a shot of this, guys. These are just 3 of the books, right? You got this? How many books have you written so far?
We've got 7 that are basically done, 3 more that are in the process of being done. We're going to come out with a series of 10. Our distributor has said they don't want to have more than 3 come out per year. They don't want to supersaturate the market.
This is what, see, in my goofy stories, there's always somebody who's, doing something stupid and they're goofy. And then I can't remember, because I told a story about a snake one time. I went into the classroom. It wasn't a poisonous snake, and befriended, one of the kids who was my son, and blah, blah, blah. It was a stupid story. And then they took him to lunch. And the kid said the next day, tell me a story about, I called him Sammy the Snake. True story. And I couldn't remember the details. How did you remember the details of these stories?
Well, I remembered them sufficiently with Peter's corrections that I could get through them. Plus, since they love them so much, I made up more stories. I made up a host of Lima Bear stories. And when Peter and I went into business, we said, well, we have to have a mission, and our mission is helping children become lifelong readers.
So there are messages and morals here.
There's a message, a key message in every story. The story it's engaging, the characters are lovable, illustrations we think are magnificent. These stories are so funny that if the adult isn't laughing along with the children, there's something wrong. But it's all part of a fabric of a message. For example, in the very first book,
which one?
The Megasaurus, the message is stick to your convictions.
In Megasaurus, stick to your convictions.
That was the overriding message of that story. It's embedded in the fabric of the story.
Okay, now how about this one?
How Back got his name. Got his name. The message of that story is have tolerance for the differences in others. And this is a message which is, in today's age, more important than ever. And in the third one...
How about the cave monster?
The cave monster is, if you do things as a coordinated group, you can often accomplish things that alone you would never be able to accomplish.
What has this done for you?
Well, it's given me an appreciation that I already had for children, and they are so innocent, they are so open, they are so creative at such an early age. And the thing that's reopened my eyes to is that you can pour so much knowledge and capability and creativity into children at such a young age, and I don't think we take full advantage of that. I've had experiences where 2.5-year-olds, just from the illustrations, can tell the story after having heard it only once. And yes, it's broken English. Yes, the words are different each time, but it's the whole story.
But I got to ask you something from a business point of view. Why didn't you go to a traditional publisher, cut a deal, get your advance, whatever it is, as opposed to creating your own press?
The main reason, and Peter and I talked about this, is we want to be in complete control of the whole process. Who we hire, how the cover looks, how many illustrations, all the editing. Because if you send it to a publisher, yes, you get an advance, you get royalties, they listen to you carefully, and then they go ahead and do what they want to do.
And then it's not really your book.
No. And it may be very different. They may not market it the way you want to market it. So, and we had a section, we wanted to put a section in here at the end called Extend the Learning, because we feel that the book, with this wonderful message, actually serves as a platform for further learning and engaging the children verbally, asking them questions before the book, looking at the cover and saying, now, what do you think this is about? And you get the children to fire up their imagination and their creativity and come up with their own thoughts. And then during the story, there are pauses, like in the first book. Well, how many pancakes do you think the bakers made? And why did they make so many? And what would you have done? Would you have cooked something else up? And did you think this was a good idea? And you get the children to respond to this. And this is, we see the book as the verbal, the text is the verbal rendition of the story. The illustrations are the visual rendition of the story. And then afterwards, you get the children to participate, and they become active. They become active in the story as opposed to just listeners.
We've had a lot of people on who are in family businesses, and they've said, boy, has this created tremendous tension in our family being involved in a family business. What's it done for your family?
Nothing. The exact opposite. It's total harmony. I'm in business with all three of my sons. They asked me to be in the business with them because of my experience, and it's been completely harmonious.
Isn't it interesting, this idea that comes from this business, that comes from an idea based on stories you're telling your kids, and your son Peter says, hey, there's something here, Dad, you want to share it. In your wildest dreams, did you ever think that you'd have this kind of impact?
No, and Peter was really the prompter and the catalyst for this. He pushed, he said, Dad, I still remember the stories, which he does and did in detail. And he said, I want these to come out as books. And the interesting thing is, Steve, we're going to come out with a series of 10. I've only told them 7 stories, but inside I'm still a kid. And inside Peter is still a kid. And what I found very fascinating is that together we can work up stories, new Lima Bear stories. They're just seamless in the sense that they sound just the same as the 7 that I told.
It's a great story. I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's a great story, not just from a business point of view, but from a family point of view and creative point of view. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thomas Weck, who is the author and co-owner of Lima Bean Stories and Lima Bears Press, with his son Peter. It's a family business, and we're very glad that those stories that you told your kids are now being shared with many, many others. Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Tom. Stay with us. One-on-One returns right after this.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org and visit us online at oneonone.org.